Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's SIPS Download webinar. Delighted to have you with us. I'm James Moore, editor at SIPS Download, and I'll be hosting the session and facilitating any questions that come in today. As you'll know, we're talking about AI's impact on procurement and supply chain functions on today's session. But more than that, we'll get to hear a real-world case study of how AI has been at the center of the transformation of the procurement function at customer service software company Zendesk. It's an exciting story, and I'm sure one that those of you joining us will find helpful to understand in your own approaches and your own journeys to that AI question. As Zendesk's Tim Majors will explain, this has been very much a people-first approach, but AI and automation have complemented the transformation of the wider procurement function. The team worked with our partner for today's webinar, LevelPath, using their AI native solution to enhance procurement's impact. And most notably, this has reshaped the perception of procurement from internal stakeholders at Zendesk from one of maybe reluctance to one of active engagement. And they now want to work with procurement and recognize the value that Tim's team brings. And this story, I think, speaks to the wider message that we've heard on many of this year's webinars on SIPS Download, many of our podcasts, many of our articles, and also at our events globally, where procurement and supply professionals are increasingly being valued as genuine strategic enablers for their organizations. As ever, on our SIPS Download webinars, there will be time for you to ask your questions to our speakers, who I will introduce shortly. So please do get these in via the Q&A box. You should be able to see on your screen just below me in the video player. Please send them through whenever you think of them, and we'll come to them after the presentation elements that we have lined up for you first. Couple of additional notes while I'm on housekeeping. If you want to watch us in full screen, you can do. As I mentioned, there are slides today, so it could be useful. You'll just need to minimize to use that Q&A function that I mentioned. So you need to just come back out at full screen when you want to ask a question. And as with all our webinars here on SIPS Download, today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you afterwards. So if anything urgent comes up, you need to jump on that call that the boss is calling you about, don't worry, you will be able to watch back on demand and you will be able to share with colleagues who you think might find it useful as well. But that is enough from me. Let's get going and introduce the real stars of the show today. So first up, we have Tim Majors. Tim, welcome. Great to have you with us today. As viewers will be able to see, you're Vice President of Procurement at Zendesk, and I know you'll give an overview of Zendesk properly in a little bit, but do you want to just introduce yourself and say hello to the audience?
Yeah, thanks, James. Hi, everyone. Tim Major, yeah, as James said, Vice President of Procurement here at Zendesk. I've been with the company just over 7 years now. I've been in the procurement industry for around 20 years across different industries, public sector, pharmaceutical, and in the last 10 years within the tech sector, working with brands such as Twitter, LinkedIn, and now Zendesk. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Some big names there that you've worked with in the past. Great to have you with us, and we're really looking forward to hearing Zendesk's procurement story. And we also have Amanda Cook, Director of Event Marketing at LevelPath. Amanda, welcome. Do you want to say hello and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thanks, James. So hi, I'm Amanda Cook. I'm LevelPath's Director of Events. But before joining the team here, I actually worked directly with a lot of procurement organizations at companies like Enable and Scout RFP. I think that gives me a nice, strong foundation in a lot of the challenges and opportunities that procurement teams are navigating, and just really excited to be here with Tim today.
Super, thank you both. Look, so I'm going to hand back over to you, Amanda, first to kind of set the scene, give us a little bit of background into the acceleration of AI adoption, that procurement and supply chain functions are seeing and that you're seeing at LevelPath. And then Tim will present on the Zendesk story. And as mentioned earlier, he'll tell us a bit about the maturity of the procurement function, the maturity journey that the procurement function has been on, the purpose behind it all, the outcomes, and also how AI native solutions have been a central part of what the team is now capable of delivering. I'll be back afterwards for the Q&A. So as I said earlier, do get your questions in. I can already see we've had a few in, which is fantastic. So please do keep them coming. But for now, I will pass over to you, Amanda.
Thanks so much. All right. Well, so as I mentioned earlier, I really am thrilled to be here with all of you today to talk about how Zendesk and LevelPath are redefining what's possible in procurement. I think we've all seen firsthand how procurement can sometimes get a bad rep for slowing things down with manual disconnected process. But also, we know procurement can be just such a real growth driver in an organization, especially when it's smart, connected, and AI powered. So at LevelPath, we are on a mission to make procurement delightful. So today we're going to show how that mission comes to life in partnership with a company that knows a thing or two about customer experience, Zendesk. And before I hand it over to Tim, I just really wanted to talk a bit more broadly about AI. So, when we talk about AI, it's easy to feel like the world's moving at light speed, and that's because it actually really is. Let me see if I got my slides going. Okay, there we go. Sorry, had an issue there. Um, and that's because it really is moving at light speed. And so wanted to talk about some things in perspective, right? So it took radio 38 years to reach 100 million users. Television was 13 years. The internet was just 4, but ChatGPT was 60 days. That pace of adoption is unlike anything we've seen before, and it's really why we cannot rely on legacy tools that bolt on AI after the fact. Procurement really needs to be AI native, not AI added later. And this acceleration has really been our wake-up call and our opportunity. So, wanted to talk about why this shift matters. In 2025 alone, the world's largest hyperscalers, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazons of the world, they're going to spend over $400 billion building AI infrastructure. By 2030, that number is going to jump way up to 6.7 trillion. That's not just a headline. That's really the foundation for every digital workflow, every intelligent system, every procurement agent that's coming next. And that investment is really what makes this moment, the AI native moment, inevitable. And so, want to talk a little bit about the difference between retrofitted AI and AI native. So, adding AI to an old system is kind of like trying to put a jet engine on a bicycle. Sure, it's going to move a lot faster, but it just wasn't built for that kind of power. AI native platforms, on the other hand, are built with intelligence at the core. And so, what that means is every data structure, every workflow, every decision point, they're learning and adapting. Compliance is becoming automatic. Approvals, contracts, sourcing requests, they all move through the system in seconds instead of days. And so, that's really what we mean when we say we're moving from hours to seconds. And so at Level Path, that's really what we've tried to build is an AI native end-to-end procurement platform. So this goes from intake to sourcing to contract management, supplier risk. It's all powered by intelligent agents that are actually working for you. And so what I want you to think about, because we all hear about agents, like what does that actually come to life and what does that actually mean? So there could be an agent that helps you draft and analyze a contract. There could be another one that's monitoring supplier performance, alerting you to when there's an issue. There might be another one that handles all your intake requests. All of this is happening through natural language. And so we've been calling this the agent era. And for companies like Zendesk, it's already here. And so rather than me telling you more, I'd love for you to hear directly from somebody who's been leading this transformation inside Zendesk. And so with that, I'm thrilled to hand it over to Tim, who's going to share how their team brought this vision to life and what AI native procurement really looks like in action. Tim?
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. I'm back, me again. Yeah, I have a few slides to talk through just our overall journey over a number of years, not only our AI journey, but also procurement and Zendesk and our overall maturity journey throughout the last couple of years. But let me stop for a second. What is Zendesk? What do we do? So as James said, we're a customer service software. We service our customers in order for them to deliver the best experience for their own customers. We support all multiple communication channels. Think about all yourselves when you reach out for customer experience help, talk, online, chatbots. We support everything across one platform with our own industry-leading Gen AI technology. We're definitely changing the game in terms of how we approach customer service and the customer experience through automated solutions and automated resolutions across the customer experience industry. So if you're looking for a workforce management tool, a customer service tool, feel free to reach out to me directly and I'll put you into the right team and the right people that can help you here at Zendesk. Procurement, as you'll see on the slide here, We are a traditional procurement shop here. We have strategic sourcing, procurement operations, accounts payable fits under that procurement operations arm. We also lead our travel and expense program globally and our contingent workforce program globally as well. As some people may know about Zendesk, we were a public trading company up until the end of 2022, until we then became a private company where we were acquired by two private equity firms. Back when we were a public company, when we think about our mission and our value that we're bringing to the company as a procurement organization, we were very much measured on efficiency only. Very much downhill skiing in terms of how can we get a contract signed as quickly as possible? How can we get the PO done as quickly as possible? And then procurement stay out the way type of thing. And also make sure the supplier is paid on time. We then were very much, again, that efficiency based. And even we talked about budget and spend because there was such a focus on growth from the stock market standpoint. We put sort of that due diligence to the side somewhat. Fast forward then to when we were a private company, the mission and the value that the procurement organization was bringing to Zendesk completely changed. We wanted, obviously, to drive our profitability across the business. We wanted to make sure that our cost margins and the way that we're operating as a business was transformative. And procurement, we had a great opportunity to then be that forefront of the business, really drive real value across the business from really great negotiations, building a mature procurement organization where we were not only enabling the growth across the business, but we're also protecting the growth around the business, and really make sure that we were a key pillar to the growth of Zendesk, both from a product growth standpoint, but also a financial standpoint as well. So how did we do that? Three key areas here. Business engagement. Historically, we were more reactive, waiting for requests to come in, waiting for the business to engage with us in order for us to help on net new spend, renewals, things like that. We flipped that. Very much on the front foot, out engaging with the business. We built out a category management team or approach across the procurement organization where we're very much more relationship-based, relationship-focused across the whole business. We really made sure that we were building strong collaboration with our business owners and our key stakeholders to ensure that, and I hate this phrase, at the table with them, helping make key decisions when we're thinking about strategic vendors, strategic suppliers we want to continue growing with, and also where we can look for further opportunities to drive cost optimization. We also looked at our overall team, our procurement team. How can we scale? How can we be more agile? How can we move away from that day-to-day manual, reactive work to be more out there driving value across the whole business? How can we make sure that our footprint is bigger than our foot, so to speak? And then working with our partner teams. The procurement team, we're not the only team that's key stakeholders or people that want to spend money on behalf of the company. We're not the only ones that they deal with. So we're really working closely with our legal partner teams, our security partner teams, our IT partner teams, to making sure that we're driving simplicity across the whole procurement life cycle and ensuring that we're driving really good due diligence as well. Also, widely communicated across the business our company priorities. We wanted to really drive our profitability. We really wanted to operate at speed. We wanted to be disruptive as an industry here at Zendesk, and we are aligned to that ethos through our day-to-day work. How can we negotiate better? How we can drive more due diligence across the business, but also how can we look at how we're serving our customers, our internal customers, with speed, and also looking at the tools that we use to help disrupt, so to speak, from a procurement standpoint. We looked at that seamless area. How can we drive quicker? How can we help enable the business quicker? What Amanda said earlier about procurement historically or being known as a bit of the blockers. we wanted to move away from that and sort of help enable the business rather than block the business from doing what they need to be doing. So one thing that through all that work, we were able to really steer the business in a new direction in terms of how we're driving costs, how we're thinking about overall spend management as a company. That's not easy work. It can come with difficult conversations sometimes, especially with vendors that we're looking to may have had a long standing relationship with, where some teams are emotionally tied to. And then all of a sudden, the procurement team are coming in saying, okay, let's look at the market. Let's negotiate better pricing moving forward. Let's conduct more RFPs. Sometimes they're difficult conversations to have. With that, we wanted to make sure that the business were coming to procurement not because they had to, because they wanted to. And as we'll continue to change the overall approach for procurement, and sometimes deliberately putting some positive tension in terms of the system when it comes to spending for Zendesk, it created a little bit of a lack of customer experience. And we knew that we had to do that initially to change the course of how we were approaching spend and what we needed to do to help drive really strong profitability. So when we thought about how we were evolving as a procurement organization when it came to technology, we really wanted to, at the forefront of that, ensure that we're focusing back on our employee experience. When people were coming into procurement, that it was a really great experience. Yes, they were continuing to expect a procurement team that was going to be on the front foot, driving value, wanting to be at that discussion position around what's strategy that we're going to enable when it comes to certain spend. We're going to do due diligence. We're going to do really rigorous benchmarking, but we're going to also evolve and make sure our overall process is really, really strong. And we wanted to make sure that we were creating a really strong employee experience for our company. We had a great benefit of bringing in some new tools through that, and we really wanted to make sure that, one, we saw an opportunity to build our employee experience with an AI-first approach that would, one, really help drive a seamless experience for our employees, but also help us manage greater volumes of work, greater complexities of work as the company continues to grow. And that's where our relationship and our partnership with Level Path began. So when we think about the entry point and when you first come to procurement, this is where Level Path was and Zendesk at procurement at Zendesk was able to build a really great partnership. Before Level Path, we had a very manual intake. We had a workflow that worked okay, but there was a lot of manual hands, a lot of people having to manually touch requests in order for it to get to the right place, whether it be partner teams or just through a nice process. We had inconsistent approval and escalation paths. Certain requests would go to different teams that essentially maybe didn't need to be part of the process or had to only need to be light touch in terms of a procurement life cycle. And the biggest thing that I heard in terms of feedback across the business is that lack of visibility. As we know in procurement, buying software or spending some marketing dollars for an event is totally different. It involves totally different teams, totally different negotiation tactics, a different process overall. And requesters didn't really have that visibility in terms of what it meant or what the process would look like when they were buying software or versus a service like a marketing event or something like that. So we really wanted to make sure that, one, we were driving a more efficient and effective workflow for the whole procurement lifecycle, that where the right teams were coming in at the right times when they needed, and there was visibility that the customer, our internal customer requesters, knew exactly what path they were in and what that process would look like when they're looking to spend on behalf of Zendesk. And that's where we've seen really rapid engagement and change utilizing Level Path, is that visibility piece and also that AI-driven routing when it comes to the workflow experience. Teams come in when they need to. We're able to use prompts, and I'll get into this in a little bit in sooner, a couple of slides. We're able to utilize prompts and AI smart workflows to really develop smart processes and effective procurement life cycles. So one, we continue to do that due diligence, but it's a much more efficient and effective process for all. When we think about our learnings that we did when we were building this initial intake, our stakeholder and our partner teams are huge. We went out to the business. What are those pain points do you have currently with our overall process? Where are our partner teams? What do they need versus what do they want? And ensuring that they're really part of that process as well and that overall journey in terms of our own transformation. It could be very easy to just rip up what you have and go big. We decided to start small and iterate. Zendesk as a company was going through a lot of change, so we wanted to be mindful of that. So when we were looking to change our overall intake and our procurement lifecycle process, we wanted to be small and make initial changes, then iterate and expand off that. One that really helped us manage. We could learn quick. We could really get really great feedback of what was going well and what wasn't so going well in our initial move from our workflow experience, but we're able to help and bring the customer along a lot easier as well. And then we're obviously able to utilize that technology, utilize that AI first approach, which really aligned with our own company goals as well and helped with that overall buy-in from the business too. Okay, so I'm going to go into 3 key areas that we've found and we've seen the needle completely move. So you're going to get some water here. 3 key areas that we've seen the needle completely move from our overall procurement experience. It all starts with the front door. With an AI first entry point, we have seen a huge improvement in just overall engagement from our internal business coming to procurement. Before, we had many manual hands to making sure that, one, we were understanding the intake requests, what they wanted. We had, I'm sure many might have this on the call, long request forms. We have to answer 20 plus questions in order to get your request generated. This AI first front door was really able to just seamlessly get, and I'm pardon the pun here, seamlessly get the request on the right path into the right team's hands first time. And if you can get the front door experience working first off, the rest of the process flows really, really nicely. So we put a lot of focus into this, whether it be you're looking to spend money in Zendesk, you're looking to look at saving sign-off, we're looking to look at your supplier onboarding, all comes through this one entry point. And then we ensure that we're driving a really smart, effective workflow utilizing AI from the rest of the process. So this front door, AI leading, utilizing really great knowledge base has been a really huge driver in terms of that overall engagement. Like I said earlier, our teams, our business partners wanting to come to procurement, seeing the value in procurement instead of like, oh yeah, procurement are one step I need to do. Let's just get it done and move on. They want to come and they want to come and seek guidance from procurement, and it all starts with a great front door. Workflows. We think about the amount of different chains and workflows depending on what you need to spend, all those type of things. We've been able to build a really strong agile workflow. Companies and businesses are changing rapidly moving forward at the moment. This agile AI first workflow means that if we were to maybe want to put some focus on certain spend elements, we can change them straight away. We can ensure that we're able to pull in extra approval flows, whether it be I get moved into approval flow for a certain spend or a CFO, we're able to do that on the spot and ensure that due diligence is really at the forefront. We're able to build really strong prompts in terms of how we engage with our partner teams through workflows. It doesn't mean that so for instance, previously we would have a software request that we need to go to security. Pretty much all software requests would have to follow that same flow to that security team. And there'll be different levels of reviews they need to do. We're able to build and these really great AI-powered workflows. We're able to really drive different experiences depending on what type of software, what type of risk, those things to ensure that one, the review gets handled the right way the first time, and we're not over-engineering the whole procurement review cycle. So we've seen a huge amount of efficiency here, about 15 to 20 minutes, reduction in workflow channeling with one click and driving through these AI-powered workflows. This is my favorite here, contract intelligence. As a leader, I need to jump into requests and paths and tickets sometimes to understand what's happening. I'm sure those leaders out there they go in and you have to scroll through a whole series of updates to understand where a certain contract is or a procurement lifecycle is. The AI-powered assistant gives me a summary right there, right at that moment. I no longer have to sort of cheat a little bit and go tap one team member on the shoulder and say, hey, what's that update there? It's so easy for me to go in and get an update, a summary in terms of what's happening, what the contract negotiations for, where it's at, those type of things. It's really, really great. For my strategic sourcing team, we're able to build really strong data analysis from this, from benchmarking, looking at reviewing contracts, getting really great summaries of initial looks on T&Cs and things like that. Really helps drive strong efficiency and moves away that manual time of looking through contracts and really leaning on our AI to really drive efficiency from this. What that does for my team is that they are able to work on more strategic things. They can be out in the business, working with our key stakeholders, doing more strategic decision makings. They can be out with our vendors, doing more engagement, driving this contract intelligence and having our AI, really do the manual work around, building out overviews, summaries, benchmarking, first look at contracts. It really gives them ability to really go strategic in terms of how they operate. Now, we all being central finance people, we like numbers. So, these are all, like I said, those three areas are really strong needle movers. From the overall transition and maturity of moving to level path and really focusing on that employee experience, ensuring that we continue to drive due diligence in our processes. We've been really able to see really great efficiency numbers come through the whole process, while still, like I said, ensuring that we're challenging the business. We're having those right conversations. We're going out to RFPs. We're testing the market. All those take time, but through an AI first leading procurement lifecycle management, we're able to really still drive great efficiencies. So you'll see here, cycle times are dramatically reduced. We're seeing faster approvals and fewer escalations. We're not seeing requesters, raise escalations of I'm lost. I don't know where I am in the process. I haven't heard from anyone. What is it, what's going to entail if I want to buy this software? That information they get is there in level path, and they're getting that, and that creates really great transparency and accelerates that adoption as well. We've seen an increase in stakeholder participation, not only from a business standpoint. We talk about the great work that procurement's doing from an overall company standpoint, but the day-to-day stakeholder participation of wanting to coming to procurement for guidance and help has increased. And that is all from, again, that front door and that proactive approach that we've been undertaking. We've seen great savings trackings, 35 million annualized savings this year. In the last 3 years, we've been operating around 12 to 14% of annualized saving against our addressable spend, which is a great result and really has made a huge difference in terms of our whole cost margin as a business as well. And then when it comes to compliance, we've seen continue building muscle around compliance. Yes, we want to run faster as a business. Yes, we want to execute a lot quicker, but with the great tool that Level Path is, we're able to maintain that due diligence over from a negotiation standpoint, but a compliance standpoint as well. And lastly, what's coming up next? We as a business, we're on a great path of growing. We're a billion-dollar revenue company now. We want to be a multi-billion-dollar revenue company in years ahead. What does that mean for procurement? Larger volumes, more complex deals. We're very much an AI first business ourselves in terms of the product. So, when that comes to AI usage and new AI first vendors that we'll be negotiating and onboarding, there's more complexity to that. We're also heavily engaged in M&A at the moment. If you're following Zendesk, done a number of acquisitions the last number of years. So procurement at Zendesk, we need to continue evolving. We need to continue being really strategic. We want to still maintain a really strong efficiency arm. We see an opportunity over the coming months to reduce the time savings of 3 days per request. We're also want to make sure we're evolving Level Path to be that one-stop shop. We want to make sure that we're doing all our sourcing activities in Level Path. So we'll soon be doing RFPs and generating our RFPs through Level Path, which continues to build the data and the analytics in Level Path, which we can then feed into AI and get better help with the better decisions, but also really drive our analysis and data that we help provide to the rest of the business. Aligned to that one-stop shop, we want to build further integrations. Currently, we have DocuSign integration in play. That's been fantastic in the signing of contracts process, made that a lot cleaner, a lot more efficient. We want to continue the integrations with Cooper, our supplier onboarding, things like that, which will really just help really drive more effectiveness across the whole business. One big goal for us next year is around third-party risk as well. And through Level Path, we're really to make sure that we can build those processes in, really drive the third-party element to ensure that we're undertaking those risk assessments when it's new onboarded vendors, ensure that we're like I said, protecting the growth for Zendesk. So what we see is Level Path a great partner for us. They have really been a great partner for us in trying to support us in our AI first approach when it comes to procurement as a whole, how we want to operate, not only from a customer employee experience standpoint, but also from a procurement team standpoint. The way that we look at AI is we want AI to complement our work. I really want, when we think about strategic sourcing, I want that strategic piece to be in capital letters. And the way that we can do that is utilizing AI to make sure that's getting us rich information, rich data. It's helping our processes be effective. It's helping us negotiate. And it's really making sure that our team members out negotiating with vendors, out supporting our business, have ample time to do that and can do that with really impactful value. So we are very much continuing to drive that AI first approach. Tools and software like Level Path enable us to do that. And at the end result, we're serving the business, we're serving our stakeholders and helping our company grow and win, of course. So that's all I have on the slides. James, I'll pass it back to you and we'll open up for some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Amanda said it best earlier, delightful procurement and a delightful story to talk us through the path that you've taken. Tim, I've noted down a few of the words you used there, that disruptive, growth, agility, seamless, employee experience, front door experience. These are all very positive connotations for me. They're sort of a different language that you're able to speak from a procurement perspective than maybe has been done previously. Maybe compliance or cost reduction, savings would have been the first words out of your lips. But it's changing the perception, and that's not to say that those foundational elements are sort of disappearing, but I guess this is enabling you to be more strategic in your approach to everything, which I think is really fascinating. That front door experience as well is a really great way of putting it. I actually spoke to another procurement practitioner doing a similar thing, building that kind of front end And I think it completely changes the perception of procurement. Doing it with AI, it means that people can use natural language to ask for requests, right? Which is completely different to filling out those long forms. I've been on the other end of those long forms, and I don't know which button to press to get myself on the right path, as you say. So I think that improves the compliance, helps manage costs, all of that in the back end, but ultimately it changes that relationship that you have with internal stakeholders. And Amanda, I think the speed of change you talked about, you showed earlier, is incredible. I think people have said to me in the past, or we've talked about in webinars, is there any comparisons we can make? And people have said, well, when email first came into the world of work, it's actually quite hard to make that comparison because of the speed. I think it's, people have been, email took time, I believe, to kind of adopt and for people to get used to it. People are adopting AI and running with it, and it's just understanding the best approach to it was doing it in a kind of compliant way, which I think is really interesting. So thank you both. There were some of my takeaways, but I'm sure the audience had many more. We're going to get to some questions now. So look, if you have any questions, I can already see quite a few have come in. So thank you for those. As a reminder, that Q&A box is just below me in the video player, so do get those in. I think, Tim, we'll start just following up on that story a little bit. You obviously took a very forward-looking approach by kind of embracing an AI native foundation. What inspired that kind of AI native approach so early, and how has it kind of shaped your long-term strategy?
Yeah, great question. So I think there's a couple of things to this. We're a small and mighty team, 16 people. Depending on what our overall procurement program looks like each year, we average around 200 to 250 million in addressable spend. So there's a lot to cover. Plus, like I said earlier, at Zendesk, we're going to really go through a lot of change in the business and grow rapidly in scale quite quickly. So from a procurement standpoint, we need to get ahead of that. We wanted to ensure that we're driving value across the business. We're supporting that growth. Obviously, we want to drive profitability across the business quite aggressively. So we're very much a value driver in that. So when we were thinking about how do we do that, aligned to changing how we spend as a business, how do we look at that from an overall life cycle standpoint? We discussed as a leadership group or as a team of how can we work smarter? How can we do more? How can we drive more value with the business, with the team that we have? So that's where we put the case to the powers that be of hey, this is where we want to go. We need to invest in AI. We need to invest in procurement. We're at the forefront of the business. We're out in front working with our stakeholders. We need to drive our value, not only through ourselves turning up, but also through our systems and our technology as well. So we align with our own company product and what we know that AI can do from a customer service standpoint, customer service industry. We knew that AI could really help us drive amazing value, not only for Zendesk, but also for our customers. So, and that's where we started with that intake. How can we help drive more of a seamless experience? So we're going to continue evolving with that. Like I said, we're utilizing the way we're thinking about AI and automation at the moment is how can we complement the work that we're doing today? How can it complement the value that we're bringing to business? Whether it's through a lot of just an experience or through really generating rich data and rich insights in order for us to spend the best way for Zendesk. So, and also, we've empowered the team to, innovate. We've given time for team members who are interested in this AI space to go and explore what can we do, whether it be through software like Level Path or stuff that we can do just through ChatGPT or building AI bots and stuff that for us. It's really given that empowerment to the team to go and see how can we innovate in order for us to make our own lives better, in order for us to create more value for the business.
Fantastic. There's a couple of questions here, and you mentioned, getting that buy-in to invest in AI is crucial, right? It's really important. And a couple of questions around it, struggling to get that buy-in. So I guess, you saw a big jump in stakeholder participation, contract visibility. Were there other kind of key metrics that you kind of used to prove that impact internally to stakeholders and to those above who were kind of signing these investments off?
Yeah, so we had a global company. Basically, we created a project aligned to when we became a private company, um, being one of our company goals, and we want to drive, like I said earlier, profitability. We saw that as an opportunity for for procurement to be at the forefront of that, and we developed a project called Bending the Cost Curve, right, where we looked at our overall opportunities across the business, where we can drive efficiencies from a cost optimization standpoint, where we can look at consolidations. We looked at our tech stacks and things like that. We looked at those, those tools that we had that had low utilization, but we're continuing to renew them every single year. And we put a whole a project together of like, let us go at this. This is how much we can generate savings, cost optimization to the business. However, in order for us to do this, this is what we need. This is the investments that we need. And rather than, hey, we need 15, we need to double headcount across the team, go from 16 to 32, we led with a technology investment standpoint. And then obviously you need to back that up. Hey, by spending this money on this investment, this is what the ROI is going to look at. So this is what we think about, not only from a technology standpoint, but from an AI standpoint. What's the ROI? I think, this day and age, AI is quickly becoming a buzzword, but I think what's really important is to really show what that ROI is. I just showed great metrics that we've seen ROI of utilizing level path, those efficiency metrics. We were able to support that really strong data by in us being able to generate $90 million of annualized savings over 3 years. This is the investment that we need, and we're able to get that backing, which was great.
Fantastic. And maybe some of those watching today might use some of the metrics you've shown today to kind of go away and prove the value that this can create if done right. There's a few questions here. One from Danny, one from Amber on skills. And I'd like to come to both of you on this one, if I may. Well, one of the questions is around, what skills training opportunities are there to upskill in AI. I can take a little bit of that one. I was going to point out later, but there are skills training courses that SIPs are putting on at the moment, working with some really great partners who are experts in AI. They're going in. I think the next courses are in January. There's one about intro to AI and procurement. There's one about more strategic oversight of AI and procurement. So for different maturity levels of where you're at in your career. So we'd definitely recommend those, and we'll put a couple of links through to those so that you can have a look at them. I personally speaking, have also used the likes of LinkedIn Learning. I found that's quite an impactful tool, and I know Tim, we talked off air about that being a useful tool for your team.
Yep.
Amanda, is there anything else you'd point to that for where procurement professionals can upskill themselves in AI and understand not just what AI can do and what it does from a broader perspective, but also the impact it can make for procurement teams and the different elements of agents that you can use to do different things in the procurement lifecycle process?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Tim mentioned this, but I think prompting is such a huge piece of the puzzle. AI is as good as what you put into it and how you prompt it. And so I think really learning how to be an excellent prompter and how to refine those prompts as you go along and how to really get to the answer you're looking for is really huge. I know at Level Path, we've got an AI masterclass series that we do with lots of different procurement customers of ours. So they really dive deep on, contracts or how do they get their front door to work, and just really how do they make it as maximally effective for them. So we do have that, but I think also what you mentioned, LinkedIn Live, all of those resources are amazing. But I really do think it comes back to prompting because I think AI is it's not a silver bullet, but it really will get you there if you know what to ask it and how to ask it.
Absolutely. And a follow-up question from Amber here for you, Tim. Did you need to upskill your team for this new way of working? And if so, how did you go about that?
Yeah, yeah, really great question. Yeah, and it continues, right? AI is changing like weekly, monthly. So we need to definitely stay on top of it. couple of things. We had a company-wide LinkedIn Learning initiative around AI, compulsory training across the whole business, which was great. Like I said earlier, Zendesk is, AI first product-wise as well. So we had internal trainings around Gen AI as a product as well to to both understand what we're doing from a product standpoint, but also just to help with overall knowledge of AI, and that's helped a lot. Um, Within procurement, we leveraged a couple of team members who are like really advanced. They're just using AI in their own day-to-day lives. And we had them sort of help be sort of SMEs in this space. I would consider myself a little bit old school. I still write my notes on a pen and paper. Going and prompting, it was definitely not organic for me. I still have to remind myself to prompt things like that. But we utilize their SMEs across the team to really help bring those like me up to just to help expand their overall knowledge. I think the way we've been able to use the AI and level path, like sometimes you don't even know that you're using it. It just happens. It flows. Like it's so natural for me now to go into a path or a ticket and just get my summary that I sometimes forget that like when I'm actually asking questions and certain, okay, so who's it with legal or what's legal's last update? Like you sometimes forget that you're utilizing AI. So I think for us, our thing was just got to start using it. Just start, whether it be ChatGPT or other AI things, to start just bring it into the team, like iterate where you can, and then evolve from there. But definitely, if you have a team member that's really passionate in this area, let them go. Like maybe we take a few projects off them, give them a month to go and explore this piece and be innovative around it because it can create really great value and really great innovation across the team.
It's a really nice way of looking at it. This isn't directly relevant to AI, but we had a webinar recently where we talked a podcast actually recently where we were talking about modern slavery, and one of the pieces of advice there was for procurement is find someone who is invested in it, find someone who's really interested in this area, and let them take it, let them be the experts, let them kind of go away and experiment because it allows them to feed back to the rest of the team. It allows them to go to conferences that I know Level Path do and have been on and things like that where you're talking in that community and then you bring those ideas back into the business, right? You become driven innovators within the business itself, not just the ones who are kind of helping other teams get those products through, which I think is really interesting. Um, we talk about AI natives as well and AI native systems. There will be a measure of the workforce coming through who are AI native. It's almost like the way we use cloud or mobile driven sort of systems, right? We just become so used to it that we don't even realize we're doing it. And there's a question from Sophie. So thank you for sending this in. A thought-provoking one. With the rise of AI native tools, how do you see the role of procurement professionals evolving in driving innovation rather than just efficiency? I might have just sort of answered some of that part, but Tim, I'll ask you, and then maybe I'll come to you, Amanda, as well.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in earlier when you were talking when I first passed it back to you and you were those keywords are like growth, value, those type of things. Procurement's totally changed. Our place in the business has totally flipped from that faceless back end support. You'll be brought into the process when you need to. Other than that, you're that team sitting in the corner of the office type of thing. Procurement are now real value drivers across all businesses. The focus on profitability across any industry is really, really strong. It's a key driver across business as a whole now, and procurement a huge part of that. How a company spends money is so critical to the overall success and profitability, right? So when we think about procurement's role in the business moving forward, that pro you it's nearly I would nearly think turning into an operations team. You're out on the coal face of the business. You're out you need to be out working with stakeholders. You need to be with key decision makers across the business, working with them, understanding what they're trying to solve, working with vendors to understand what their innovation looks like, and feeding that back in. The data and insights element that a procurement team can bring to those key decision makers, whether it's at a product level or a marketing level or a finance level across the business, is really, really important in order for making those best decisions for the business. So I think when we think about like the place of AI and our role as procurement professionals in the future, we need to utilize AI to, one, help us work smart. How can we run faster? How can we do more work by utilizing AI? But how can we get that information, that rich data and those insights, like I said earlier, to sort of bring those to those meetings, to those discussions? Like that is really, that is so important. Even the information that we can get from vendors, or how we can assess and compare in an RFP or at a market competitive level, utilizing those AI data and insights through AI, it just gives us so much more information, gives us so much more knowledge in order for us to really drive impact across the business. So don't hide away from it, use it, and really, I think coming from a mindset of like, how can we utilize AI to complement our work is the right way to go about it.
That's a really good way of putting it. And the SIP's CEO, Ben Farrell, if anyone doesn't follow him on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend it, because he talks a lot about this kind of thing. And the time for procurement is now. And there's a few reasons for that. There are supply chain challenges that we've seen this year that is bringing procurement front and center of organizations in their resilient planning. There is the climate change issue. There is the environmental and sustainability work that procurement have been doing for many years, but maybe just in the background. But there is also AI that is sort of driving this evolution of procurement, maybe this transformation. And I love that quote. AI is, well, I've kind of slightly changed the quote, but AI is giving procurement a face. It's a different way of putting that kind of nicer way, I think, of putting that kind of AI is giving procurement a seat at the table.
Yeah,
It's giving procurement a face.
Yeah, I think we're expected, or not expected, we're looked to do more, I think, in the future, right? We're not just there to try and find the best deal and go from there. I think procurement we look to drive multiple areas of value in the business. So, can't do everything with your hands. We need to look at ways through technology to sort of amplify that and help that. So, yeah, it's I think whether you're building a life cycle process or an overall process, AI first, whether it's to help try to build that employee experience or just help your own knowledge tool set, it's very important.
And Amanda, to come to you for a moment, would you agree with that? And I think we've seen some conversations on the SIPS community platform recently, and it's just come to my head that there are those in the broader procurement that are sort of struggling to kind of see the adoption process as quickly as maybe other functions in their business are. Is that something that you've seen at Level Path, and you're kind of, or you believe that it doesn't have to be the case? Procurement can adopt AI, and you can overcome some of these obstacles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we want to support procurement leaders like Tim and everyone who's wanting to go fast. And I think what that means is having the foundation that can scale with you. We look back to, when mobile became big, you could tell a huge difference between something that was developed on a mobile platform versus an old website that you had to kind of do the zooming thing with your fingers to try to get it to the right size. It's all about usability. And so having that foundation and having something that can scale with you, that's really what it's all about. I think we're really just trying to be the tool which you can build upon, right? And you can build those processes. And we know we're definitely building with our customers in tandem. So any ideas are always welcome from us.
Fantastic. Thank you. Question from Danny, one for you here, Tim. How difficult was it to switch to an AI native system from your previous operating system that would maybe have held a lot of live and historical data? Any pain points, any learnings that you can share with the audience from that?
Yeah, sort of goes back to the earlier point of starting small. You have big ideas and you're like, oh, we can do all these things, we can do it tomorrow. So you sort of nearly need to hold yourself back somewhat in terms of that sort of end point. We already had a workflow from a homegrown tool. So it wasn't like we're coming from nothing. I know a lot of sort of teams work off email and they move to a level path, and it's much easier to be able to get up and running and go straight away, those type of things. But we had a homegrown tool, so we had to ease off that. We operated in parallel for somewhat to help make sure that we're getting that knowledge over that historical data, so to speak, over to level path. So we took time in that and making sure that we were building a really strong knowledge base to ensure that the AI was able to run effectively. I think we all know, you know, bad data in, bad data out. I know there's different ways you can say that. But we really made sure that we focused on that knowledge base. We really made sure that the historical data, we're making sure that we're focusing on that, bringing that into level path, ensuring that we'll be then when we really started to leverage our AI components that was already there in level path, that we're seeing the value straight away. And we're not having to iterate or getting the wrong results just because the data wasn't good enough. So started small, made sure we could iterate quickly, which was great. And then the last bit was ensuring that knowledge base was really rich from day one. So we were patient with it. We didn't rush because we know that we were already coming off already a workflow that our business knew well. So we had to just make sure that we weren't, changing too aggressively.
Yeah, and it's that's a piece of advice that I've heard from several procurement leaders who have gone on this journey is don't run before you can walk. Just take a moment, take a breath, speak to level path, the experts who are going to be, who have seen many clients go through this process, I guess, and then go from there and see where it's going to be most effective. Time for a couple more questions. So be quick. And there's a specific question, and maybe one for you, Amanda, just on what a level path can do. Is there an AI tool that can be used to support 360-degree supplier performance evaluation?
Yes. I mean, it's level path. And I promise that was not a pre-selected question. But no, Supplier 360 is definitely something we are coming out with. We can talk to you more about it in depth. I know it looks a little different at every organization, and that's something that we really pride ourselves on at Level Path. We go across industries, across teams, and really work with you to build what you need. So if that's something you want to dig in a little deeper, we definitely can. I'll be emailing you following the webinar, so we'll definitely make sure we can get you in touch with the right person to go deeper.
Absolutely, do get in touch. And we had a question earlier I spotted actually around, will this video be available to watch again? Yes, it will be. It will be available on demand. Probably a couple of hours after finishing today, you'll be able to watch it back on demand. But we will send a follow-up email to you as well. There's a few questions on different use cases in different industries and different sectors. I think maybe just to come to you, Amanda, there's questions on using it for the public sector. There's questions on using it for manufacturing and the private sector. What would be your response to those? Is it just about understanding the need that you have within the procurement function to best utilize it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we totally go across industries, across sectors. That's not a problem. It's about understanding your workflow and building it accordingly. And it could be to Tim's point where you start off with one workflow, you get it working, and then you build another one and keep going on top of that. So definitely flexible to go across industries. If you happen to peruse our website, you'll see our customers are really across all industries, and what they have in common is procurement challenges that they need solved. So
Brilliant.
So just
Thank
on that,
you.
I would say start with where the biggest pain point is or where you can drive the most value from. Start from there. Don't try and build Rome in the one day. Just say where can we utilize AI to create the most value now and focus on that and go from there.
Brilliant. Well, that was my final question to you was going to be what would be your number one piece of advice for adopting procurement, but I think you've answered it there. So we'll finish on a slightly different one from Joe, and I think it's a nice one to finish on. What soft skills have you been able to upskill your procurement team with, or enable them to use more, I guess, to add more strategic value now that you have AI taking some of the pain points, taking some of that slog out of the procurement process? So is there one or two soft skills that they've been able to evolve, develop, or you've given them more time to kind of work on?
Yeah, out in the business, more, front and center, at, like I said earlier, at the table with those key decision makers in those meetings, much more time to be able to work on and strategize in terms of doing a lot more market engagement, things like that. Negotiation, learning, evolving your negotiation skills. We can do more of that. So yeah, it's in terms of just being out, building relationships, partnerships, learning about our vendors more, what our own internal business customers need, and also just continue to develop as a great negotiator. We're definitely focusing more on time on that now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And there's nothing like meeting with an internal stakeholder or meeting with a vendor, right? Face to face to kind of better understand the pain points and how you can help. And if you can take some of the process out of everything, that gives you that time, that space to kind of spend time and ask those questions that can completely transform the perception of procurement within the business, which is exactly what you've done at Zendesk. So yeah, thank you for sharing your story today, Tim. Amanda, thank you to you and the team for joining us and for supporting today's webinar. Really appreciate it. And there will be a follow-up email from Level Path shortly with you. Before I go, as a reminder, those skills courses I mentioned that are running on AI in January, do take a look at those. We'll pop a couple of links through to you so you can access them now. Worth noting as well, we have some more webinars coming up this November. We're getting stuck into contract lifecycle management next Thursday, looking at contract risk and how you can turn that into resilience as a procurement function. While in a couple of weeks, we've got this next SIP salary guide webinar in partnership with Hayes. We'll be asking procurement leaders what kind of employee they're looking for. So I should have asked you that, Tim, to get us started on that. But what skills that they should be focusing on for future career success. So do join us there as well. But that is enough for me today. Thank you everyone for joining us. You'll shortly receive a follow-up email from this webinar to watch back on demand, as I said. Do share with your colleagues if you thought this was interesting. I'm sure I found it very, very interesting. I really enjoyed that discussion. So do go and share with your teams because I think there's a lot to take away from Tim's journey. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you again soon for another SIPS Download webinar. Thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.